After a long flight with a layover in London, we arrived to Italy in the late afternoon where we took an Uber to our hotel in Rome. By the time we settled in, the weather had cooled down, so we decided to wander around the city and eat gelato at La Romana per a local's request. The next day was booked out with tours, starting with the historic Colosseum. After taking a water break since it was extremely hot and humid, we continued the tour through the surrounding areas. After our tour, we hopped in an Uber to the Galleria Borghese to look at some of the art before venturing over to the Piazza Navona, where we got tricked into paying €10 for 2 string bracelets. Watch out for these people, they're persistent. We had to go to the Vatican museums while we were here, so we took a tour through the museums and ended it with the Sistine Chapel, which we unfortunately were unable to film. Later, we crossed the Tiber River to check out some places on the other side of town, which were mostly residential or local spots. Taking a bus ride outside the city to the Villa Adriana ruins, we followed a guided tour throughout the area where the weather decided to be bipolar. We continued up the hill to the town of Tivoli, where we got lunch and wandered the Villa d'Este. Unfortunately, since it was raining pretty hard, we weren't able to walk around the beautiful gardens.
Okay, get ready. 3, 2, 1, go! Smile. Pose your foot. Oh my goodness gracias.
Coming back to the Vatican, we toured St. Peter's Basilica, which is an absolute must-see when visiting Rome. We started with a walk up the steps to the cupola, where we were met with a breathtaking view of the city from above. We walked back down and took a small break before heading into the basilica, where we got to view the intricate marble and bronze structures and artwork. We couldn't come to Italy and not study their food and cooking culture, so we took a pasta making class where we learned how to make some homemade ravioli and tiramisu before wandering around the city for the rest of the day. Next was a travel day with a train ride from Rome to Naples, where we relaxed before a tour of Pompeii the next day. Taking a trip to the Amalfi Coast for the day, we hired a private driver who drove us to Positano, where we wandered around and did some shopping before catching a ferry to Amalfi. Hopping on another train from Naples to Florence, we checked into a hotel and toured the Uffizi Museum before doing some street shopping and exploring the city. We signed up for a guided tour which provided us with a bus ride from Florence to Tuscany, starting with the small town of San Gimignano. Venturing further, we arrived in the city of Siena for a tour of the Siena Cathedral before heading back to Florence. Seeking a beautiful panoramic view of the city, We took a bus to the Piazzale Michelangelo to take some pictures and admire one of the Michelangelo replicas. The Boboli Gardens was next on our list, so we took a small hike up to the gardens to see the view and architecture. We worked up an appetite, so after walking around the Arno, we stopped at Trattoria Zaza per another local's request, and we were really impressed with the food here. Our stay in Florence comes to an end as we hop on another train to the city of Milan, where we toured the Milan Cathedral. We booked another guided bus tour to check out the surrounding cities of Lake Como, starting with Como. We continued by bus down the road to catch a ferry across the lake to grab lunch at Bellagio and do some shopping at Verona before taking the bus back to Milan. At this point, I was loving the high-speed rail system in Italy because we got on another train from Milan to Bologna to see why people were calling it the food capital of Italy. We only tried one restaurant while we were there for half a day, so I can't really agree or disagree that the food was superb. But that just means I'll have to come back. Continuing on by train, we stopped in Turin to check out the Egyptian Museum, and while we hoped to see the Shroud of Turin while we were in town, it wasn't on display at the time. So, we wandered around for a bit and called it a day. Last stop on our trip was a visit to Venice, which was definitely a new experience to see a city of canals instead of roads. We checked into our hotel and wandered around until our feet hurt. On our last day, we took a boat ride around the city to see its beauty from the water, and just explored and relaxed the rest of the day before taking a flight back home.